everybody. This is Sudeshna from MARG Business Transformation. A huge thank you to everybody for making Synapse a huge success. Synapse was held on 5th August in Bangalore, and it made history because it got the worlds of AI and change management together for the first time. The energy and the response was phenomenal. What came out very loud and clear was that all of you want more. In context of that, we are so proud to bring together Synapse, the next connection, where your favorite speakers shall be diving very deep into the topic you valued the most. Today, it's my great pleasure to welcome Sushmita Malik. She is the VP HR of 24x7.ai currently. She's a strategic HR leader who has worked in multifunctional expertise across HR, sales, and P&L management. And she has covered almost all domains under HR. So welcome to you, Sushmita.
Thank you so much, Sudeshna. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to Mark. And it was such a pleasure to be part of Synapse. For me, really, it was enlightening in so many ways, talking to so many industry leaders about their interactions with the new advent of AI.
And we heard so much about what, our panel, which was the CHRO panel, spoke about that resistance to AI adoption, the journey of the culture, which is going to be so vital in making AI successful. So in continuing to what we kind of spoke, the question which was always, we all were like deliberating on was that the softer skills of the leaders, like empathy or, building that psychological safety for people or building a collaborative culture would be so vital for AI. So how would we go about measuring these softer skills or softer of these abilities or capabilities?
Yeah, I think that's probably the most pertinent question in every platform that I'm part of nowadays. That's one of the foremost questions to deal with. AI is not the first. It's the latest disruption in our world, but it's not the first, and it won't be the last either. You would remember about 20 years ago when contact centers like ours first came in, there was a fear amongst those who were in stores, service providers and helpers, and they were worried about their jobs and whether contact centers were going to take away their jobs. But over a period of time today, it's so natural for them to partner with us, right? So it's a combination of both. And then later when IVR came in, when chatbots came in, then the worry was whether that was going to take it away. But today, as we see, we are all beginning to adopt. I mean, think about you and me. We wouldn't expect to call for a service and first be handled by a human, right? You automatically get directed to a bot, and only when it gets more complex do you then get transferred to a human interface. So that's becoming the natural way of the world. I think for organizations and for us as leaders, it's going to be important, nevertheless, to allay these fears. And psychological safety, as you said, right? One of the foremost questions always in case of any such disruption is my job at risk? And I think it's important for organizations to be transparent about their approach to this whole disruption. Obviously, there will be phases. First, you will observe, you will analyze, you will test and experiment, and then you will measure as to how this disruption is actually impacting our way of work. And I think it's important to take employees on board right from the start in this journey. And as always, and especially now, keeping the AI to EI balance in place as leaders. So therefore, like you said, empathy, compassion, understanding, reassurance are going to be key. And thankfully for us today, as all of us are dealing with multi-generational workforces, the advent of Gen Z and later on, maybe soon, Gen Alpha, they are natives to
Yes.
this disruption. So they're growing up with it, so they're already using it much more possibly than you and I. And therefore, I think we should take that on board, leverage that, and use it to the advantage of all of us, and reassure them, introduce them to tools in the workplace that help them to use AI as a partner constantly and not see it as a threat. So, just to give you an example, in our case, we're already using it in our hiring processes, in the way we train them from the very initial stage. At that time, of course, they're using it as a co-pilot. Many a times, AI is playing the role of a coach in how a human agent should actually talk to a customer, chat with a customer, respond to a customer. Many a times, as a quality assurance person, as a subject matter expert. So all of these things are helping them every day to be more productive, to be more efficient, and to create better customer experiences. And they're learning to see the value of AI in them being more effective. To the question on how do we address and how do we measure whether we are doing well on aspects like psychological safety, I think, of course, the traditional methods that we've always used and which we are innovating on as we go along day to day, things like pulse, things like a culture pulse, things like happiness index, things like employee satisfaction surveys, measuring how are they feeling every day. A happiness index, for example, a lot of organizations are using it nowadays, where every day when you come into office, you're actually responding very quickly to a few pop-up questions on how's your mood today? Are you feeling secure and safe at work? Do you like and look forward to coming to work every day? These are very simple but basic questions which tell you how people are feeling. And these are very agile now. They're able to trigger to a manager how his or her team is feeling, what is their mood of the day. And so when they're doing their daily huddles, then they can actually take that input on board and address them effectively, address those threats, those fears, and be more humane in their interactions. Similarly, culture indexes that we are using. We are right now, as we speak, running something called Pulse across all our programs, which has a set of a few questions, but it gives us very valuable feeders on how people are feeling. And we are then able to respond. Each one of us, managers, team leaders, frontline supervisors, are able to respond to these effectively and quickly.
That's something like, I think, which I would say attributed to AI, like in the sense that online real time, we used to say those things, but it has become absolutely now, as it's lovely that you're saying that, the managers are actually using this as an input to in their huddle, and they can kind of see. Long time, all the time when we joined organizations, we were told, like, if you're feeling like going to work every day, it shows that you really want to belong to that place. And that's the simplest thing to ask, that am I feeling safe enough, instead of how am I feeling today. It may be very simple but not simplistic, but it is actually gives what you want. And it's a good measure. And the best part is you're using it immediately to kind of tackle it.
Yes, absolutely so. Absolutely so. And therefore, a manager or I as a leader, and all of us, when we start using these, we become much more informed about how people are feeling. And therefore, it also helps to shift our focus from just thinking about how a person is delivering versus also thinking about how they are feeling. And I think especially with this disruption, especially from a perspective of psychological safety, keeping that balance in mind as a manager, as a supervisor every day is extremely important. We are already, all of us, working under pressures of deliverables day to day, but not letting that override the human factor, I think, is key to success.
That's so true. And another thing which you mentioned on the Gen Zs and the Alpha will soon come in. So they will be very native to AI, but the people who, like all of us who are already there in the system, I wouldn't say fear, but I think there are a lot of inconsistencies in maybe setting the expectation as how much of AI should people know. I mean, the as we say, the AI fluency. What is the mandate? Like, how much should C-suite know? How much should the frontline know? It should be like who should know what and how much. Is it something on the organization level people are now working that something is going to be pervasive to the organization, or it is more with individual efficiencies? How are we looking at this whole AI fluency mandate?
Yeah, again, a very, very pertinent question. And I think, as AI just becomes part of our life, it already is in every possible way, it is going to be important for all of us to be not only literate, but fluent on it. Now, like you said, the kids, the Gen Zs, the youngsters, for them, they're already used to it. Today you will notice that the education system itself is changing. From a time when rote learning was the way of things to go, today critical thinking is becoming much more integral to the schooling system as well. I see little children who are maybe in the 5th, 6th, 7th standard, they're actually thinking through the way they want to prepare a project. And they're then presenting it to kids, their compatriots, not just within the schools, but across schools within the country and international forums as well. So that's the kind of learning and ways of learning that are changing today already. So critical thinking is already embedded for youngsters. But like you said, for those of us who belong to other generations, for whom the advent of AI is more new, that is possibly where there is a little more resistance, and there needs to be much more flexibility to learn and to become first literate about what all AI can do, and then become fluent in order to make it part of the wider ecosystem. So I was just reading, and from time to time, and all of us need to do that. But I was just seeing that the role of a chief AI officer is now becoming so pertinent across organizations. And I was seeing that about 46% of organizations are already beginning to induct such a role. And it ranges from retail to government organizations as well. Yeah. So there is that one leader in the boardroom who is the expert, and that all of us look to when we are looking at decisions based on AI. But from that one leader, it really needs to spread to everyone in the boardroom and then to the next and the next levels of leadership as well. And therefore becoming more fluent, first of all, becoming literate, understanding what AI has to offer. Starting to use it, just experiment with the AI tools to understand the potential that it has to offer. And then starting to use it to eliminate the typical repetitive things that all of us do every day. Mm-hmm. And then release time for ourselves to focus on the more strategic things, the areas which need our experience and thought leadership, and let AI take care of the repetitive tasks for ourselves also. Then I think becoming part of AI communities, becoming part of industry groups that are discussing the relevant elements related to and the challenges, the risks and the potential of AI. Just being part of Synapse itself, I would say, for me, very educative, and I'm sure for all of us who were there, because everyone from different industries and organizations were talking about the challenges they were facing, as well as the experiments they were doing, the new learnings they were gaining. I think being part of groups like that and forums like that is just much more educative for us as leaders, And we need to be willing to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I need to learn and I want to learn.
Yeah.
And then maybe doing some pilot projects with AI, because that gives you practical knowledge and experience. So some of these are things that we ourselves can do. And then today, there are so many platforms offering very constructive programs and courses to educate ourselves. I was just seeing Coursera's offering on AI for everyone. That's something all of us could do. And then there are so many reputed universities today who are offering executive programs for leaders on AI. They range from Harvard Business School to some of the IIMs in India itself who are offering courses like that. So I think we all need to become much more proactive in, first of all, becoming literate about it and then getting to the stage of fluency.
In connection to that, what's coming in my mind is that experimenting which you're talking about. That means the companies also need to give that a little space to the employees. That part also comes, right? Experimenting means there will be success, there will be failures. So do you think are the organizations now matured enough to give that space to the employees?
Yes, I think it's a journey. But I think when we design our learning and development programs, AI needs to become an integral part for every level in the organization, because, as I said, it needs to start both at the front line and at the leadership, so at the top and at the bottom, but not just individually, not just self-learning. It needs to become part of the ecosystem. And maybe as part of organization culture, all of us as industry can think about how can we incentivize people to do this. Because many times, when you launch programs like this, people may look at it as, okay, one more training program that I need to do, just as a matter of compliance. But today, I don't think it's a matter of compliance. It is really a critical success factor. And an element for survival itself, I think. And therefore, yes, to your question, it needs to become part of structured learning. And it needs to become a part of, for us, for example, learning is a tenet of our culture. So as part of that learning tenet, how do we ensure that AI is deeply embedded in it? And then how do we create incentives for people to take it up proactively so that it becomes a pull rather than a push?
Yeah.
And, if certain leaders or at each level, there are those high potential folks who are at the front line of innovation, how can we incentivize it for them? How can we recognize them for becoming AI experts?
Yeah. And then they can be influencers.
Yeah. And then they become the examples and role models that others want to look up to and replicate.
I think this has been great, Sushmita. Anything else you would like to say to round up the conversation?
I think AI is a revolution. And I think, and a movement, and I think all of us need to become part of it and look at it, like I said, not as competition, but as collaboration. Look at it as a partner rather than a threat. And if we look at it that way, it can only lead to collective success for all of us because it has a lot to offer.
Thank you, Sushmita. That was great. Yes, indeed, AI is one of those giant leaps of mankind, and I think embracing it and adopting it and giving that chance to everybody in the organization to do the same, I think it can lead all of us to success. Thank you so much, Sushmita.
Thank you, Sudeshna. It's been a pleasure to be part of this conversation with you.
Thank you for kickstarting this for us. Thank you. We are connecting again with your favorite speakers. So please join us at the YouTube channel, and this would be available to you on LinkedIn as well as our YouTube channels to watch.